I'm back at it again, defending movies no one likes.
Oh, Warner Brothers, what are you doing to us? In your time, you've given us some of the best comic book movies ever, but then you tried to jump on the Marvel Extended Universe bandwagon, except without all the planning and patience and quality control. And you ended up delivering absolute shite. Remember Suicide Squad, everyone? Remember thinking, wow, this Harley Quinn is awesome. Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous fuck off film.
Me fail English? That's impossible.
Birds of Prey is awesome, and I mean that in the most literal sense of the word. It's disposable entertainment of the highest order.
That's high praise.
Something you're expected to consume with absolutely zero thought or intelligence and then promptly forget about.
Like most movies or TV shows you watch.
Just like the people who made it.
That's a bit sexist.
A vanity project spun off from a failed superhero team-up that nobody cared about. A vapid, self-indulgent, meaningless, badly written, horribly paced conglomeration of different ideas that work together about as effectively as Kathleen Kennedy and directors who are capable of independent thought.
I can't speak of the quality of the sequel trilogy, but those movies made over $4 billion.
Pitched to a market that doesn't exist. And starring a bunch of actors who aren't big or interesting enough to get arses in seats. In short, it was a complete fucking chore to get through.
No, not really.
And for the next 10 minutes, I'm going to explain exactly why. So the film picks up sometime after the events of Suicide Squad. I guess Jared Leto is still in the huff with Warner Brothers, so the Joker is suspiciously absent from this film. Instead, he's broken up with Harley Quinn after taking credit for a bunch of crimes that she planned.
I'm not about to let a man take credit for a woman's work.
Anyway, this is all bad news for her, because she spent the past few years acting like a total asshole without fear of reprisal.
I mean, she is Harley Quinn. How do you expect her to act?
But if news gets out that the Joker dumped her, she's completely screwed. Now you might think it would make sense for her to leave Gotham and find a new place to live.
No, not really.
But nah, she just hangs around and keeps acting like everything's cool.
Well, yeah, she's in denial about being dumped. Did you watch the movie?
So she goes to a nightclub and gets totally shit-faced and breaks a guy's legs because he got mad when she spilled a drink on him. That's when we're introduced to the antagonist of the movie.
Yes. The negotiator. General Kenobi.
Harley decides she needs to get over the Joker properly, and what better way to do it than to steal a gas tanker and drive it straight into the chemical plant where they first got together.
We're bad guys. It's what we do.
You know, I could point out that a massive chemical explosion in the middle of a crowded city would almost certainly cause untold damage to the environment.
We're bad guys.
Not to mention killing dozens, if not hundreds of innocent civilians actually working at the plants.
It's what we do.
Anyway, word soon gets out that Harley is no longer under the Joker's protection, so a couple of goons try to abduct her outside Roman's nightclub. But in comes Black Canary, a singer who for some reason is also skilled enough to beat two fully grown men in hand-to-hand combat.
So I'm not sure if she's supposed to be from the League of Assassins in this adaptation. But she is a skilled martial artist and is a meta-human with her supersonic scream.
Roman happens to notice this little alleyway fight, so he hires Black Canary to be his new limo driver, because his old one has two broken legs courtesy of Harley Quinn.
Oh, boo-hoo! Let me play a sad song for you on the world's smallest violin.
He sends Black Canary to retrieve a very special diamond for him that used to belong to one of Gotham's big crime families before they all got assassinated. The diamond's important because it contains the bank accounts where they've hidden their family fortune. But it all goes tits up when a teenage pickpocket named Cassandra steals the diamond from an incompetent henchman, because all men are incompetent, only to get arrested and taken to a nearby police station. So she takes the stolen diamond and swallows it in full view of the cops sitting right next to her.
In the storytelling business, this dummy swallowing that diamond is called a complication.
Meanwhile, a Gotham detective named Montoya is investigating a murder carried out by a mysterious crossbow assassin. Montoya is a tough-talking, no-nonsense cop. Montoya catches up with Harley and tries to capture her, and it made me laugh because Rosie Perez is 55 years old, and she moves with all the speed and agility of me after 2 bottles of whiskey.
Well, there's a couple of things here. For one, yes, they could have casted someone younger and beefier to play the Question. And 2, this is blatant age shaming. If the Question was played by a man in this movie, regardless of his age or weight, this guy wouldn't have a problem with this character at all.
Anyway, Harley escapes only to run straight into more of Roman's goons, who take her to his nightclub so he can torture her to death. But then she somehow talks him out of it.
I mean, did you want the movie to end there?
But the genius script is like, nah, it'll be fine, because it needs to get Harley out of this situation and moving again.
I hate this, the script said argument. Like, yes, it's in the script. Obviously.
So Roman lets her go on the promise she'll recover the diamond for him, because it's not like she could just skip town on him and disappear forever.
She'd be a dead woman if she tried some dumb shit like that.
For the purposes of this movie, Gotham City is basically the only place in the universe that actually exists.
Where the hell are they supposed to be? Tijuana, get your head out of your arse, mate.
Did a fucking kindergartner write this?
No, you'd have to be a complete sad sack to think Batman villains should be located somewhere else.
Anyway, Harley goes to the police station, she gets down to the cells and springs Cassandra, but she also releases all the other prisoners by accident. Cue another cringeworthy fight scene with some extremely accommodating stuntmen.
Like how most fight scenes are filmed in movies. You think they're really beating the shit out of each other in those overacted and over-rehearsed fight choreographies. If you think that, then I got a bridge to sell ya.
You know how it's kind of implausible that someone of Margot Robbie's size and build could defeat even a single heavily built man in a balanced engagement?
Anyone can make some damage with a giant bazooka and a baseball bat. These a small woman could never take out a man. Arguments are shallow at best.
Well, multiply the implausibility factor by roughly a dozen, and you'll have some sense of how this scene plays out.
So we're going to wonder how women can hurt their enemies when they're trained in combat and yield weaponry that would wound and hurt people, regardless of the size they are. But when it's a man, they're powerful and can do things that are beyond the realm of plausibility, and that's perfectly okay.
Everyone waits their turn to attack. Everyone swings and misses. Everyone gets taken out by a single punch, because that's totally all it takes to floor a 200-pound man. Harley just churns through them all and escapes with Cassandra like it was nothing.
Action movies do this a lot. It is not realistic at all that one person can single-handedly take down a whole group of people without getting injured. Birds of Prey is a movie. Of course, it's going to be exaggerated for entertainment's sake. For example, here is John Wick doing essentially the exact same thing. See how silly it is to complain about action scenes in a movie. Of course, it's not realistic. If I threw myself down the stairs the way John Wick did, I'd be out right then and there. It's not supposed to be real. It's supposed to be entertaining.
Now, all of these various events probably sound like convoluted nonsense to you.
No, not really.
And frankly, they are.
No, not really.
5 minutes later.
Eventually, all the various parties converge on an abandoned amusement park, which for some reason is still fully functional because the script says we need to have a fight scene in the funhouse.
As well as the production manager, director, and writers. It's almost as if they were filming a movie.
And all the girls learn to put aside their differences and work together to smash the patriarchy. That calls for even more cringeworthy fight scenes with even more accommodating stuntmen.
How do you think action sequences are filmed? Of course they're going to accommodate the main actors and their stunt doubles. That's how fight choreography works.
And then Roman dies, Cassandra shits out the diamond, and the movie ends. And that's it. Sorry if I kinda glossed over that last part, but honestly, by that point in the movie, my brain was turning into lumpy porridge, and I was struggling to remember where I even was or what was happening.
He remembered everything he needed to say in vivid detail. I don't see where he was struggling.
Assessing Birds of Prey is a tricky prospect because there are so many things wrong with it, it's hard to know where to start.
We're just getting into the critique now, halfway through the review.
The story is told from Harley's point of view.
A movie called Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn is told from Harley Quinn's perspective. Well, hot damn.
And because she's the very definition of an unreliable narrator, events are shown out of sequence and usually make no sense to begin with.
He's acting like he couldn't follow the plot when clearly he did for this review. So I don't see what the problem is with telling events in non-sequential order.
Then she'll realize she missed out some important shit and go back and fill in the blanks later.
That's the whole point of using flashback scenes. Now you're getting it.
I guess the writers watched a lot of Guy Ritchie movies before they did this film.
The movies they use for references as told by the director of the film, Kathy Yan, were Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, A Clockwork Orange, The Silence of the Lambs, Leon, Romeo and Juliet, Children of Men, Bridesmaids, and Mad Max Fury Road. However, the editors of the film, Jay Cassidy and Evan Schiff, could have been fans of Ritchie's works. Honestly, it takes little to no effort to look up some of this stuff.
Because Birds of Prey is trying painfully hard to copy his fast-paced, non-linear storytelling style.
It was trying to be more like A Clockwork Orange meets Gentlemen Prefer Blondes.
It'll even do that freeze-frame thing where a new character gets introduced and show a little montage of their personal history to give them some quick backstory.
I didn't realize Guy Ritchie was the only director who could do that in films. Also, they did that in Suicide Squad.
The difference here is that Guy Ritchie understands how to craft an intelligent, well-structured story that functions on its own merits.
So, why did no one tell me of your beauty?
No one mentioned yours either.
Oh, thank you. They say that in Scotland. Yeah, right? It's very, very amusing.
Is it?
Yeah.
We have the same title, yet are never described the same way.
Jasmine.
Yeah.
The flashbacks and additional scenes are there to add new context and different meaning to established events.
Which is also how those scenes are implemented in Birds of Prey.
Instead of literally explaining stuff that makes no sense initially.
It doesn't make sense initially because they explain it in the flashback. That's what those scenes are for.
That's the difference between talented, intelligent screenwriters who actually understand how to put together a smart story that keeps people invested.
You're talking about the same guy that gave us Aladdin 2019, Operation Fortune, Ruse of Gare, King Arthur, Legend of the Sword, Swept Away, Rock and Rolla, The Man from U.N.C.L.E., Snatch, and those RDJ-led Sherlock Holmes movies. Right, just checking.
And dumb, talentless hacks trying in vain to copy them.
Calling her dumb and talentless is a little out of pocket.
Anyway, the movie eventually decides non-linear storytelling is too hard and settles into a bog-standard format for the second and third acts.
Isn't that better? I thought the non-linear storytelling was a problem. Make up your mind.
Which brings me neatly along to another problem. The pacing of Birds of Prey is all over the place.
If I ever make a video of things that drive me up the wall with things movie reviewers say, it's pacing.
The first act is frantic and hyperactive, laying on so many out-of-sequence events, characters and plot threads that it's hard to even know what's going on half the time.
You say that in one breath, but in this very review, you were able to plot point by plot point give a detailed synopsis of what happened in the film. I even edited out some of the plot point talk out of redundancy.
But then it all just kind of grinds to a halt around the 40-minute mark, and this is where Birds of Prey really starts to drag.
I have to be transparent here. It's been 3 years since I've seen this movie, so I couldn't tell you what happens 40 minutes in. But with the way this review has been going, either the reviewer was hate watching the movie, or he's being disingenuous about this to play up his character. I don't know, and I really don't care.
The film's 109 minutes long, but honestly, it feels like well over 2 hours.
It's 11 minutes shy of being 2 hours long.
They could have cut about 20 minutes of padding and it would have made for a leaner, more effective story. Instead, it feels overstuffed with too much shit that drags it down.
Do you have to talk like that?
No, not really.
Another problem is the characters. For a start, there's too fucking many of them.
I have to make the painfully obvious point that this is an ensemble cast. But aside from that, the amount of characters in this is fine. I mean, honestly, if you really stop and think about it, most movies have a bunch of lead characters and you don't really question it. But because this is a comic book movie, it's easier to nitpick details like that.
And the script doesn't know what to do with them half the time.
The script is not some kind of an omniscient being, and he says the script doesn't know what to do with them. But every character in the movie has agency in every scene they're in. Even the accommodating policemen know that the only reason they're there is to get beat up by Harley Quinn.
Harley and Black Canary are the only ones that get any real development. Huntress is a total non-entity with no personality or screen presence, who only shows up in like the last 20 minutes anyway, and Mary Elizabeth Winstead plays her like she literally got handed the script 30 seconds before shooting began.
Nice argument. Why don't you back it up with a source?
My source is that I made it the fuck up.
Cassandra might have been interesting in the hands of a better actor, but Ella J. Basco is a complete plank of wood in this film.
What are we even doing here? There are two ways that diamond's coming out of you. This way, or this way. That's what I thought. Also, I'm out of groceries.
So, how long you been a mercenary?
Hey, where did you get...
You're so busy looking at my right hand, you haven't even thought about my
Your left hand is cuffed to mine. I'll have to learn that one.
Black Canary is the standout for me, both in terms of character and performance. She's the only one who looks like she can actually fight. She's also one of the only characters to have a meaningful arc.
That's just wrong, though. The other characters have arcs by the end of the movie. Harley learns to be a little bit of a better person. For Harley Quinn anyway, Cass stops being a lil shit. Montoya stops letting people walk all over her. And even Huntress learns to chill a little.
She starts off as a lowly club singer, just keeping her head down and barely getting by in life.
I thought you had trouble following the movie. What's all this now?
But her talents land her in difficult situations, and she's forced to do bad things for worse people, until eventually she stands up for herself and risks her life to help others. And I couldn't help but think, man, I'd much rather see a Black Canary movie than this Harley Quinn bullshit.
Oh, so it looks like you were able to follow the plot. Interesting. Also, side note, apparently, a Black Canary movie was in development, but seeing how they erased Batgirl from existence, I think it's safe to say that it's been scrapped. Especially now with James Gunn hitting a reset with the DC films.
Which I guess brings me to the biggest problem in this film, Harley Quinn herself. See, I'm not convinced this is the kind of character you really want to base a whole movie around.
They had to do it. Harley Quinn is one of the biggest names in the DC universe right now. They'd be stupid to not try and capitalize off of her popularity.
She can be funny and quirky at times, and there's a certain charm in how ridiculous her outlook is, but that kind of thing gets old pretty fast. And if there's no real substance beneath the flashy, superficial crap, there's nothing to keep you invested in the character. She's like a bout of explosive diarrhea. She's tolerable, maybe even kind of fun in small doses, but 109 minutes of her without relief just becomes a pain in the arse.
That's why they have the other characters in the movie, to help balance that out. Harley works best with an ensemble cast. I mean, there aren't a lot of characters that can make a good movie just by themselves, which is usually why you have like side characters and a love interest.
The entire movie is built on the premise that Harley Quinn doesn't need anyone else to define her.
What do you think emancipation means?
But ironically, it kind of proves the opposite. She doesn't really define herself because there's not much to define. She doesn't change, grow, or develop in this film.
She literally goes from only caring about herself to caring about other people. Blatantly lying is not a good look.
She's still the same destructive, immature, selfish arsehole she was at the beginning of the movie.
Because at the end of the day, she's still Harley Quinn. What do you expect for a story about an anti-hero?
Her only revelation is that she's gotten over her breakup with Joker, but does that really justify 109 minutes of screen time?
To Warner Brothers, yes. Yes, it does.
Birds of Prey was marketed as a strongly feminist film. It's got a mostly female cast, a female writer, and a female director. Although it's worth pointing out that they had to bring in a man to direct the action scenes because Kathy Yan didn't know what she was doing.
Hate to break it to you, but that's a normal standard practice of these over-bloated comic book movies. Not everyone is George Miller.
Either way, the movie really goes all in with the girl power angle.
It's a movie about women. What do you expect?
There's the usual tropes like skinny 90-pound women beating the crap out of very accommodating stuntmen.
What the actual fuck do you mean that the stuntmen are accommodating? As if that's some kind of brilliant gotcha in criticism. Of course they are going to do the fucking choreography that they rehearsed to do. Every fucking goddamn action movie does this. This is literally the dumbest argument you could make.
Not to mention multiple examples of men taking credit for women's accomplishments.
As if that's something that's never happened before in real life. What a foreign concept. Also, it's funny, but the Joker has taken credit for Harley's accomplishments in the comics and cartoons. But let's just ignore facts.
And of course, every single male character in the film is portrayed as sadistic, arrogant, selfish, emotionally unstable, weak, vain, cowardly, and totally deserving of the violence the women inflict on them.
Most of the men in this movie either have zero lines or are mobsters, so it fits.
The script is actually kind of an interesting insight into the minds of present-day feminism when you think about it.
I just want to point out here that the script is not a person with a mind of its own.
A protagonist that's self-destructive, narcissistic, violent, unstable, selfish, and refuses to take responsibility for her actions.
I'm sorry, kid. And I'm sorry I tried to sell you. That was a dick move. For what it's worth, you made me want to be a less terrible person.
But really, how many normal, well-adjusted people who don't spend 20 hours a day on Twitter are going to get behind something like that? By all accounts, not many. Birds of Prey is already flopping hard at the box office.
It did better than the Marvels, with half its budget.
And when I stop to ponder why, I find myself coming back to the same question I asked of Charlie's Angels. Who was this movie even made for?
Harley Quinn is one of the most popular comic book characters right now. This movie had an audience. They just prefer streaming.
It's not for men, that's for sure. The marketing made it clear this is a movie about female empowerment, misogyny, and everyday sexism.
It's just funny how these dudes act tough on the internet. But the minute a movie like this comes out, they cry about how it doesn't appeal to them. They want to watch the same thing they always watch. And if it's slightly different, then they throw a hissy fit. You could replace the women in this movie with men. And all these guys crying about feminism would have loved this movie.
Which doesn't exactly scream light-hearted fun for most guys.
Dude, it's rated R.
The R rating means that most families won't go to see it.
I did all that work putting in the red circle for nothing.
And even women don't seem to care about it.
I'm not going to put all the goddamn clips again. Yes, the movie underperformed, and yes, it has an R rating which might have contributed to less people going to see it. But that doesn't mean that Harley Quinn doesn't have an audience.
Probably because they now have a pretty good sense of when they're being pandered to, and they're not as dumb as Hollywood seems to think.
No, people are still plenty dumb. Just look in the mirror if you're curious.
You can't just slap the term female empowerment on a crappy film and expect them to flock to it. Ultimately, Birds of Prey feels like a rushed, poorly conceived vanity project.
He just makes shit up and hopes no one will fact-check him.
Spawned from a mediocre superhero film and based around an actress with an overinflated sense of her own star power. Margot Robbie is listed as one of the 3 producers on this film, and from what I understand, she was a big driving force in getting it made. Now, Robbie is a perfectly good actress, and let's be honest, she's not exactly hard on the eye either, but she's more of a rising star than a real box office draw.
Nice argument. Why don't you back it up with a source?
My source is that I made it the fuck up.
And I think that, just like her character, this movie was an attempt to prove she could stop leaning on her male co-stars and strike out on her own.
Literally, Obi-Wan Kenobi is in this movie. If anything, they struck out together.
Unfortunately, its failure to connect with audiences kind of demonstrates the opposites. Better luck next time, Harley.
It connected with people well enough. It wasn't a complete bust at the box office and people are enjoying it on streaming. That's basically the end of the video. All I have left to say is,